In the final centuries of imperial China, a woman emerged from the shadows of the Forbidden City, seizing control of the empire. Western writers referred to her as the Dragon Lady, a title that inspired a mix of respect and trepidation.
Her true name was Empress Dowager Cixi, a figure who played a significant role during the final years of the Qing Dynasty. History recalls Cixi as a complex figure, a leader often seen as harsh, yet admired for maintaining the empire's unity in challenging times. In her lifetime, Cixi's public image was carefully shaped. To many, she seemed like a compassionate figure for the country, balancing the deep roots of tradition with the fresh currents of contemporary transformation. To some, she represented the essence of manipulation and ambition. Her story stands at the heart of China's transformation, a tale of how a woman born outside the imperial bloodline rose to command the Middle Kingdom for nearly half a century. Who was Empress Dowager Cixi? How did a concubine, lacking any formal claim to power, rise to become the most formidable ruler of her time? In the heart of the Forbidden City, a tale unfolds, shaped by the intertwining of destiny and determination, forever changing the course of an empire. This is the life story of Empress Dowager Cixi, the woman once known as the Dragon Lady. She was born in Beijing, the imperial capital of the Qing Dynasty, on a day in late November in the year 1835. She was named Xingzhen, and her father, Hui Zhong, held a position as a minor official in the Manchu Yanara clan, which was part of the bordered blue banner, one of the 8 hereditary banners that represented nobility and military structure in the empire. During that period, the throne was occupied by Emperor Dao Guang, who, along with many in his court, held the belief that China was the unparalleled center of power and culture in the world. The empire lingered in the echoes of its former greatness, oblivious to the fact that the Western world had already advanced significantly in both technology and warfare. The tempest of the First Opium War was still on the horizon, yet its approach was unmistakable. In her youth, Xingzhen received a modest education, learning to read and write but never fully mastering literature. Those in her presence observed something remarkable: a swift intellect, keen intuition, and an inherent confidence that distinguished her from others. As the unmarried daughter of a Manchu noble family, Xingzhen had the opportunity to enter the imperial harem. During the winter of 1851, when she was just 16, she received an invitation to take part in the Grand Concubine selection, a ceremony that took place every 3 years. The event that year held a special significance. The young Emperor Xian Feng, at just 19, had recently taken the throne and had not yet selected his consorts. Among the many daughters of noble families presented before him, Xingzhen stood out. Her calm intelligence and poised beauty captured the emperor's attention, a moment that would subtly initiate one of the most remarkable ascents to power in China's extensive imperial narrative. On June 26, 1852, Emperor Xian Feng selected Xingzhen to be one of his concubines. She received the title of Noble Lady Lan, a humble position in the expansive structure of the Forbidden City. Initially, her role carried minimal weight, and she remained largely in the shadows among the emperor's numerous favored consorts. Despite her quiet beginnings, Xingzhen formed a close bond with Empress Zhen, the primary wife of the emperor. Both women had walked the same path to enter the palace, and this common journey forged a bond between them. Empress Zhen, taken by Xingzhen's calm demeanor and sharp intellect, resolved to present her to the emperor again. The friendship turned out to be crucial. On February 28, 1854, Emperor Xian Feng elevated Xingzhen to the esteemed position of concubine Yi, bestowing upon her increased influence within the inner court. Her journey had subtly started. By June of 1855, the emperor began to visit her more frequently. The imperial family felt a sense of disappointment when their first child, born to another consort, turned out to be a daughter. However, circumstances quickly turned in Xingzhen's favor. During that period, she found herself expecting, and on April 27, 1856, she welcomed a son into the world, Emperor Tungzhu, the emperor's first and only male heir. The birth of Emperor Tungzhu, the emperor's first son, transformed Xingzhen's life overnight. After presenting Emperor Xian Feng with his long-awaited heir, she received abundant praise and was honored with the title of Consort Yi, a recognition that highlighted her growing influence within the Forbidden City. Holding the imperial child close, she found her place firmly established. She now ranked just beneath the empress. The following year, Empress Xian Feng elevated her status again, bestowing upon her the title of Noble Consort Yi. At that point, she had emerged as a figure of quiet authority, earning respect from the women of the palace and drawing the interest of officials who noticed her increasing presence at court.
We cannot ignore it.
Some accounts suggest that during this time, Xingzhen began to develop an interest in state affairs. It is said that the empress sometimes requested her help in sorting or summarizing official documents, and on occasion, he valued her opinion. The narrative, whether factual or enhanced, reflects the journey of a woman whose intellect matched her drive. If those tales are accurate, she would have quickly understood that the empire was teetering on the brink of disaster. In southern China, widespread uprisings were taking hold, the imperial treasury was depleted, and a new danger was emerging from overseas. The Qing dynasty found itself caught in yet another clash with Western powers, facing off against Britain and France in the Second Opium War. By 1860, French and British forces joined together and landed within the imperial domain, their modern weapons and disciplined ranks easily overpowering the outdated Qing armies. The loss at Ba Li Qiao, located just outside Beijing, left the capital vulnerable and reverberated throughout the empire.
The fall at Ba Li Qiao left Beijing vulnerable. With foreign armies just a short distance away, Emperor Xianfeng and Empress Zhen made the difficult decision to leave the capital, bringing along the imperial household and the young prince, Emperor Tengzhi. Their journey took them to Chengde, a mountain retreat that had served as a hunting ground and summer escape for past emperors, located over 200 kilometers to the northeast, a distance they hoped would ensure their safety. Before departing, Xianfeng entrusted his half-brother Prince Gong, known as Prince Gong, to negotiate with the British and French forces on his behalf. Not long after, the royal caravan hurriedly left Beijing, bidding farewell to the Forbidden City as it braced for whatever lay ahead. The defeat of the Qing dynasty was both swift and humiliating. In a matter of weeks, the empire found itself compelled to sign the Convention of Peking, a treaty that handed over territory and privileges to the Western powers. The burning of the old summer palace was particularly tragic, as this magnificent symbol of imperial splendor was turned to ashes by foreign troops.
The loss shattered the spirit of Emperor Xianfeng. Overwhelmed by sorrow, he completely distanced himself from the workings of government, seeking solace in solitude, alcohol, and poor health. He chose not to go back to Beijing, and the imperial court continued to stay in exile at Chengde. On August 22, 1861, Emperor Xianfeng passed away at the age of 30. In line with palace tradition, Empress Zhen took on the title of Empress Dowager Cixi, while Xingzhen, the mother of the newly appointed heir emperor Tengzhi, was honored with the title Empress Dowager Cixi. The new emperor was just 5 years old and not yet ready to take on the responsibilities of ruling. Before he passed away, Xianfeng chose a council of 8 influential Manchu officials, the 8 regents, to oversee the empire until the young heir was ready to take the throne. None of them, however, expected the determination of the woman who now stood silently behind the throne. The Council of Regents, comprising 8 members, was led by Su Shun along with his brothers Duan Hua and Zai Yiwen, individuals recognized for their strict conservative views. Their responsibility was to mentor the young emperor Tengzhi as he grew into his role. However, Empress Dowager Cixi, driven by ambition and a sense of distrust, perceived little wisdom or strength in them. She started to quietly devise a plan for their removal. While the regents took charge of the government and made arrangements for Emperor Xianfeng's funeral on a date selected by astrologers, Cixi began forging alliances. She earned the backing of Empress Dowager Cixi, along with several influential officials who questioned the regent's capacity to rescue the faltering dynasty. Meanwhile, Prince Gong, who was still overseeing matters in Beijing after successfully negotiating peace with Britain and France, received permission to travel to Chengde for his brother's funeral. Upon arrival, he quickly found himself at odds with Su Xun and the other regents, who resisted his progressive vision for change.
Seeing an opportunity, Cixi persuaded Prince Gong and Empress Dowager Cixi to join her in a daring plan, a coup that would wrest control of the empire from the regency. On October 26, 1861, as the late emperor's funeral procession left Chengde for Beijing, Cixi's scheme was already underway.
In Beijing, fabricated charges of corruption and treason were prepared against the 8 regents, with particular emphasis on Su Xun and his brothers. A few days later, as the funeral cortege arrived in the capital, preparations were complete. A formal decree announcing the accusations was made, leading to the immediate arrest of 7 regents. A cavalry detachment led by Prince Chun, a brother of the late emperor, intercepted the final regent, Su Xun, who was traveling with the procession. The Qing court enforced stringent laws, where such accusations led to severe consequences, including torture and execution for both the accused and their families. However, Cixi envisioned an alternative strategy, one that would solidify her authority not merely by instilling fear, but by exercising thoughtful restraint.
Cixi chose this moment to demonstrate a calculated act of mercy. Rather than following the usual practice of torture, she decided to have only Su Xun executed by beheading, allowing his brothers Duan Hua and Zai Wen the choice to end their own lives. The other 5 regents were completely spared, a move that enhanced her image as someone who was both firm and measured.
By the 8th of November, the coup had reached its conclusion. At the age of 25, Cixi had outmaneuvered her rivals and taken charge of the Qing government. She was named co-regent alongside Empress Dowager Cixi, taking on the responsibility of governing for her young son, Emperor Tengzhi, who was officially enthroned just 3 days later as Emperor Tengzhi. However, the laws of the dynasty prohibited women from openly presiding in court, leading to the establishment of a unique arrangement. In the imperial audience chamber, Cixi and ci'an would take their places behind a silk screen positioned behind the boy emperor's throne, quietly issuing orders from the shadows, a practice that came to be known as ruling from behind the curtain. One of their first acts was to elevate Prince Gong to the position of Prince Counselor, recognizing his loyalty during the coup and appointing him to assist in the administration of state affairs. Even so, the ultimate power remained with the 2 empresses dowager, who ruled through the Grand Council, the highest governing body of the empire.
Thus began an unprecedented era in China's history, 2 women commanding the affairs of a vast empire from behind a veil, reshaping the fate of the Qing dynasty through intellect, resolve, and quiet domination. The new system of government that Cixi and ci'an established was truly unprecedented for the Qing court. All official documents and reports were initially presented to the Empresses Dowager for their consideration. The Grand Council received these papers for discussion and guidance. Following careful consideration, Prince Gong, in his role as the council leader, would compile the suggestions and present them to the Empresses Dowager, who held the authority to make the ultimate decisions and issue imperial orders. When Emperor Tengzhi ascended the throne, the empire was in deep turmoil. Across the provinces, people rose up in rebellion, while corruption seeped into every corner of the administration. China's standing in the world had significantly declined. Western diplomats perceived the once powerful Qing Empire as outdated and in decline. Without immediate change, it felt like collapse was on the horizon. Recognizing this, Cixi began to purge the bureaucracy. Officials known for their corruption or significant administrative failures faced dismissal, with some even meeting execution as a consequence. During this period, she championed skilled and devoted individuals, setting aside the long-standing Manchu favoritism that had hindered the government for so long, regardless of their ethnic backgrounds. Under Prince Gong's leadership, new institutions emerged. In 1861, the Zhongli Yamen, or Board of Foreign Affairs, was established to handle diplomacy with Western powers, a significant move in modernizing China's relations with the world. In the year that followed, known as the School of Combined Learning, was established in Beijing. Its purpose was to educate students in Western languages and sciences, paving the way for a new generation of interpreters and diplomats.
These measures marked the first steps of what would later be known as the self-strengthening movement, a cautious but determined attempt to restore China's power by blending tradition with modern knowledge, all under the watchful rule of Empress Dowager Cixi. With the creation of new diplomatic and educational institutions, Cixi and Prince Gong continued to advocate for modernization. Western advisors joined the government, contributing to the design of new factories, arsenals, and shipyards aimed at enhancing China's military and industrial capabilities. These were careful but significant moves, aimed at embracing Western technology while still respecting imperial traditions.
At the same time, Cixi turned her focus inward. The empire had endured a long and painful civil conflict, and she was resolute in her quest to bring back peace. In response to the Taiping Rebellion, a significant and devastating uprising within the empire, she took charge of reorganizing the military forces. The government started to depend less on old imperial armies and more on regional militias, local forces led by skilled leaders, instead of court officials. The central military command fell into the hands of three exceptional Han Chinese generals, Zhong Guofan, his protégé Li Hongjiang, and the brilliant strategist Zhuo Zongtang, known by his soldiers as the Mule for his endurance and stubborn determination. In 1861, when the Taiping rebels launched their attack on Shanghai, the situation prompted foreign involvement. An American adventurer named Frederick Townsend Ward took it upon himself to safeguard the Western settlements by forming a small group of mercenary soldiers from the West. As time went on, this unit grew to encompass thousands of Chinese recruits who received training from European officers. After Ward was killed in battle in 1862, command passed to Charles George Gordon, a British officer who earned the admiration of Qing officials. Under his guidance, the force came to be known as the Ever-Victorious Army, reflecting its increasing triumphs over the Taiping rebels. With Gordon's tactical skill and the combined efforts of Zhong Guofan, Li Hongjiang, and Zhuo Zongtang, the Taiping forces were finally driven back. The rebellion that had torn through China for many years was coming to a close, and for the first time in a long while, Empress Dowager Cixi could start to envision a return to peace in her divided empire. In 1864, the long and bloody Taiping rebellion finally came to an end. The rebels' stronghold of Nanjing, referred to by its supporters as the Heavenly Kingdom, came to an end, ushering in a period of peace for a nation deeply affected by years of conflict. This victory marked a significant moment for the Qing Dynasty, bringing a sense of stability back to a realm that had been teetering on the edge of collapse. A significant amount of the credit was attributed to Prince Gong, whose diplomatic expertise and unwavering advice had steered the government during the crisis. However, the victory also sowed a sense of doubt in Cixi's thoughts. Prince Gong wielded significant power over the Grand Council and the Zhongli Yamen, allowing his influence to permeate the empire's bureaucracy, military, and foreign affairs. For Cixi, this concentration of power felt unbearable. On the 2nd of April, 1865, she took action. In a unique proclamation penned in her own handwriting, marked by grammatical mistakes that revealed her modest education, Cixi charged Prince Gong with arrogance and disrespect. She took away all his titles and removed him from every official role. The move took the court by surprise. Prince Gong, recognized for his forward-thinking concepts and exceptional diplomatic skills, was seen as crucial to the dynasty's future. Following numerous appeals from high-ranking officials, Cixi eventually agreed to bring him back as the leader of the Zhongli Yamen 5 days later, and shortly thereafter, he also took on the role of head of the Grand Council. Yet, she chose not to reinstate his esteemed title of Prince Counselor, keeping him under her authority. The balance of power had shifted. Cixi and Empress Dowager Cixi rose to prominence, with Cixi subtly taking charge from the shadows. As the young Emperor Tungju grew older, reforms persisted and minor uprisings were subdued. Yet it became evident to everyone that the real power in China did not rest with the boy on the throne. It lay with his mother, Empress Dowager Cixi, the figure orchestrating events from behind the scenes.
By the end of 1867, the American diplomat Anson Burlingame, who was well respected by Qing officials, was getting ready to leave China and head back home. Cixi, seizing a rare chance, extended an invitation for him to stay not in the role of a foreign envoy, but as a true representative of the Qing dynasty. Her vision was ambitious. She aimed to change the way the West viewed China, shifting its image from a mysterious and waning empire to one characterized by openness and reform. Burlingame accepted the role, marking a historic moment as he became China's official ambassador to the United States, a groundbreaking appointment for a foreigner. In his new role, he played a key part in negotiating the Burlingame Treaty, which fostered cooperation, acknowledged China's sovereignty, and strengthened the relationship between the two nations. The mission represented a significant achievement in diplomacy, and Burlingame subsequently conveyed the same message to various European capitals, further fostering connections between East and West. Inside the Forbidden City, Cixi relied on her network of eunuchs to carry out her wishes. Being a woman, she faced restrictions in some areas and was unable to manage every administrative detail herself, which led her to depend significantly on her trusted attendants. Among them, her favorite was the influential chief eunuch, Dahai, a man recognized for his ambition and extravagance. Rumors spread through the court that Cixi and Dahai shared a bond deeper than loyalty whispers of intimacy that scandalized traditionalists. Regardless of its truth, his impact on the affairs of the palace was unmistakable. In preparation for the upcoming marriage of the teenage Emperor Tungju, Cixi sent Dahai on an unofficial mission to Nanjing, supposedly to supervise the creation of imperial wedding garments at the modernized Jiangnan silk factory. During the journey, his public display of authority crossed a significant boundary set by the Qing court, as eunuchs were not allowed to leave Beijing without clear permission from the emperor. Qing law strictly forbade eunuchs from leaving Beijing without written permission, driven by concerns that they might conspire or misuse their influence. And Dehai, full of self-assurance and believing that Cixi's support would shield him, disregarded the rule. As he journeyed south, accompanied by a grand entourage and showcasing imperial banners, his demeanor reflected the pride of a minister rather than that of a humble servant. Throughout his journey, he faced accusations of siphoning funds from local officials to support his extravagant endeavors.
When An Dehai arrived in Shandong province, the governor, Ding Bojian, acting under the authority of Prince Gong, who led the Grand Council, ordered his immediate arrest. The wrongdoing was clear. A death sentence was quickly handed down, and An Dehai faced execution. His headless body was shown to the public for 3 days as a cautionary tale.
The incident left a profound impact on the Forbidden City. Some viewed it as evidence of a continuing power struggle between Cixi and Prince Gong, the Empress Dowager's influence being tested by the man who had once stood as her closest ally. No matter what she truly felt inside, the message was unmistakable. Her power was not yet complete, and there were still influential men in the court who could make decisions without her approval. Soon, however, new troubles shifted Cixi's attention outward. Following the Second Opium War, Christianity began to flourish across China, supported by Western powers, especially France, which positioned itself as the protector of Catholic missions. The presence of foreign influence sparked feelings of resentment among numerous Han Chinese, leading to a rise in nationalism that sometimes manifested in acts of violence against missionaries. In 1870, in the heavily westernized city of Tianjin, tensions erupted. A furious crowd assembled outside the Cathedral of Our Lady of Victories, breaking its windows and invading the grounds. The French consul, filled with indignation over the violence, approached the local Qing officials to seek justice, a meeting that would quickly escalate into chaos and conflict.
The confrontation in Tianjin escalated with terrifying speed. As tensions escalated between the French consul and the local crowd, the situation took a tragic turn, resulting in the brutal beating of the diplomat and his assistant. Disorder ensued. A group of individuals ignited flames at the Cathedral of Our Lady of Victories, as well as at several nearby churches and foreign structures. During a night of violence, approximately 60 Christians, primarily Chinese converts, lost their lives. A group of French nuns faced a horrific fate, enduring brutal assaults before their tragic deaths.
The massacre sent shockwaves throughout China and Europe. Concerned about the potential fallout, the Qing government swiftly denounced the attack, yet opinions within the court were not unanimous. Some hardliners called for conflict with France, while others, recognizing China's military vulnerabilities, advocated for negotiations to avoid another shameful foreign invasion. Zheng Guofan, a highly regarded statesman of the empire, was initially tasked with addressing the crisis, yet his attempts to soothe French frustrations did not succeed. Before long, his former protégé, Li Hongjiang, stepped in, bringing with him a wealth of diplomatic skill that turned out to be incredibly valuable. With careful negotiation, Li Hongjiang managed to convince France to agree to a settlement. 18 individuals faced execution, 400,000 taels of silver were paid as indemnities, and a formal mission of apology was dispatched to Paris. The Tianjin settlement brought a delicate peace and averted conflict, winning Li Hongjiang significant favor at court. His success established him as one of Cixi's most trusted officials, a pragmatic reformer whose skill in bridging East and West positioned him as a key figure during the empire's last decades.
Despite Li Hongjiang's diplomatic success, the Tianjin massacre left deep scars. As the violence unfolded, Western nations found themselves filled with dismay, leading to a renewed skepticism towards China and reversing much of the progress that had been made through previous agreements. At home, the event sparked a different reaction. It ignited Han Chinese nationalism, deepening feelings of resentment towards foreign powers, and more towards the Qing court itself, which many perceived as feeble and compromised. Meanwhile, new crises erupted on the empire's frontiers. In the distant west, the Dungan revolts, significant uprisings initiated by Muslim communities in Xinjiang, had erupted years prior and were still growing in intensity. While the Qing armies faced challenges in re-establishing their authority, the Russian Empire, driven by its own aspirations in Central Asia, took advantage of the situation to expand its territory. In the year 1864, Russia took control of new territories along its border, and by 1871 it had established a presence in the Ili region, justifying this action as essential for the safety of its citizens amid the turmoil. The occupation put a strain on the relationship between the two empires. The Qing government, focused on addressing the Muslim uprisings, found itself limited to diplomatic protests, as Russia effectively held control over Ili for a number of years. Amid these challenges, a surprising new initiative emerged, one that highlighted China's gradual yet increasing interest in Western knowledge. A reform-minded scholar by the name of Rong Hong, who is recognized in the West as Young Wing, presented a daring concept to the Qing government. Having received his education in America, he graduated from Yale University in the year 1854. He put forth the idea of sending young Chinese students overseas to study Western science and engineering. In 1872, with support from Li Hongzhang, the Chinese educational mission was launched. Around 120 boys, many of whom were just entering their teenage years, were sent to the United States to pursue their studies. This was a groundbreaking endeavor, a moment in history when China sent a whole generation of its young people to the West, aiming to grasp the knowledge that had previously overcome it.
As reform and diplomacy continued to reshape the empire, Cixi found their attention once again turning towards the matters of the palace. By late 1872, the stage was set for the marriage of the young Emperor Tengju, who was just 16 at the time, and the only son of the family. The selection of imperial consorts took place within the walls of the Forbidden City, where, as ever, political considerations influenced every decision. Cixi had her own candidate in mind, a young woman she personally favored, but her co-regent, Empress Dowager Cixi, supported another. The choice made by the latter prevailed, leading to the selected bride being granted the title Empress Xiaojia Yi. Feeling a profound sense of disappointment, Cixi held on to the grudge against the decision forever. She had a clear disdain for the new empress, making sure that her experience in the palace was fraught with challenges and loneliness.
Let this be the new protocol.
Despite her growing influence, Cixi could not hold power forever. By early in the year 1873, the official regency period came to a close, and both empresses dowager had to hand back power to the young emperor. Cixi and Ci'an formally stepped down, but Cixi, drawing on Confucian ideals of filial piety, kept influencing her son's decisions from behind the scenes. Once liberated from his mother's formal supervision, Emperor Tungzhe swiftly showcased his lack of experience. His time in power was characterized by questionable decisions and unsuccessful diplomacy. During his leadership, the newly modernized Empire of Japan invaded and occupied Taiwan for a year, an event that underscored the vulnerability of the Qing court. Worse still, Tungzhe's temper and stubbornness led him to dismiss some of the dynasty's most capable figures, including Prince Gong, a key architect of the self-strengthening movement. After the reformers were ousted from their positions, there was a growing concern that China might be regressing into a state of decline. Alarmed by the emperor's reckless decrees, Cixi and ci'an returned briefly to court, publicly reprimanding the young ruler and compelling him to reverse his decisions. Their intervention brought a brief sense of stability to the government, yet the emperor's health quickly deteriorated. By late 1874, Tungzhe had become seriously ill, paving the way for yet another shift in power, and for Cixi to reclaim the throne she had never fully abandoned.
The illness of Emperor Tungzhe created the opportunity that Cixi had been anticipating. In a matter of weeks, she and Empress Dowager Cixi took back control of the government, pointing to the emperor's inability to lead. Their rise back to power was quick and lasting.
On a cold winter day in 1875, Emperor Tungzhe passed away at the young age of 18. He departed without leaving any brothers, sons, or a chosen successor. The Qing dynasty faced a crisis like no other, having maintained a tradition of passing the throne from father to son for over 200 years. That very afternoon, Cixi called together a grand assembly of princes and senior officials to discuss the matter of succession. Even though both Empresses Dowager were officially in charge of the meeting, it was evident to everyone that Cixi was the one who truly held sway over the proceedings. Many officials urged the court to choose an adult prince who could immediately rule, but Cixi dismissed the idea. She contended that the empire required a child, someone who could be shaped through appropriate imperial education and nurtured under her guidance.
Then came her surprising proposal. She put forward the name of a 3-year-old boy, Emperor Guangxu, as the next ruler. The child was her own nephew, the son of her sister and Prince Chun, who was the brother of Emperor Xianfeng and had supported her during the coup in 1861.
To legitimize the succession, Cixi declared that Emperor Guangxu was to be adopted as the posthumous son of the late Emperor Xianfeng and herself, effectively making him part of the direct imperial line. The action went against the Qing succession law, which stated that each new emperor should come from the previous generation rather than rise from within it. Yet, no one had the courage to speak up. The assembly reached a unanimous decision on the matter. On that very night, the young Emperor Guangxu made his way from his father's home to the Forbidden City, being carried through its grand gates illuminated by torchlight. In just a day, Cixi had claimed her third reign, now positioned behind the throne of a 3-year-old emperor she could fully influence. The young Emperor Guangxu entered the Forbidden City, guided by Ronglu, a trusted military and police commander who remained loyal to Cixi. His presence made certain that each moment of the transfer happened just as the Empress Dowager envisioned. Ronglu would eventually emerge as one of her most trusted companions in the complexities of governance and the political machinations that characterized her time in power. The precision of the succession led many at court to believe that Cixi had planned it long in advance. She had once more transformed a crisis into an opportunity, navigating the unfolding events with the same steady insight that had brought her success in the past.
On February 25, 1875, the 3-year-old Emperor Guangxu was formally enthroned as Emperor Guangxu. Continuing a tradition set long ago, Cixi and Empress Dowager Cixi took their places as co-regents, governing the empire from behind the silk screen, the hidden throne where Cixi had perfected the skill of unseen influence. With stability restored, Cixi turned her attention back to reform. A new chapter in the self-strengthening movement unfolded, focusing on enhancing infrastructure, modernizing agriculture, and boosting domestic production. The empire, having endured years of conflict and upheaval, aimed to restore its power while holding on to its cherished traditions. Among those guiding this effort was Li Hongzhang, a capable statesman who had diffused the Tianjin crisis years earlier. A devoted official and strong advocate for modernization, he emerged as one of Cixi's most reliable administrators, a figure whose talent for navigating diplomacy and reform would shape the forthcoming era of her leadership.
As Li Hongzhang gained more recognition, he took on the roles of Viceroy of Zhili and Minister of Beiyang, which put him in charge of the empire's most crucial provinces. He played a crucial role in overseeing the development of a Chinese-owned shipping industry and backed the creation of private coal mining companies, which were essential for establishing an industrial foundation free from foreign dominance. Under his oversight, new technologies began to emerge throughout the empire. The telegraph made its debut as a means to connect China with Western nations, and eventually, it served to unite its own provinces. Understanding the significance of maritime power, Li Hongzhang started to establish the groundwork for a contemporary navy. Naval cadets traveled overseas to learn about navigation and engineering, as the empire brought in warships from Britain and Germany. Under the guidance of figures like Yang Peilun and engineers who received training from French advisors, shipyards along the coast of China started to create their own steel vessels. Gradually, the Imperial Chinese Navy began to form a clear indication that the dynasty was absorbing lessons from the forces that had previously overcome it. As the late 1870s approached, Cixi started to experience health issues. Due to her liver issues, she stepped back from her daily responsibilities, allowing Empress Dowager Cixi to take charge of the majority of state matters. Her illness was one of those rare moments when her strong hold on the court slipped, even if just for a short while. In 1877, the general Zhuo Zongtong, known for his discipline and strategic brilliance, ultimately subdued the Dungan revolts and reclaimed Xinjiang province, bringing Qing rule back to China's far western frontier. One unresolved issue lingered. Since 1871, Russia had continued its presence in the Ili region, claiming to protect civilians during the uprisings. By the late 1870s, the standoff between the Qing Dynasty and the Russian Empire became more and more perilous. Troops gathered on both sides of the frontier, creating a tense atmosphere where war felt not just possible, but on the verge of breaking out.
The Qing armies, armed with modern rifles and artillery, prepared themselves for battle. Cixi displayed a remarkable resolve in facing Russia, mobilizing troops to the border and gearing up for a potential full-scale conflict if needed. Clashes erupted at the border, yet the enhanced discipline and firepower of China's troops made the Russians reconsider their approach.
After 3 years of tense diplomacy and military posturing, both sides sought peace. In the year 1881, the conflict came to a close with the Treaty of St. Petersburg, where Russia made the decision to pull back from the Ili region, handing the territory back to China. The Qing dynasty achieved a significant political victory, bringing back a sense of national pride that had been absent for quite some time. Even as the empire celebrated this achievement, cracks began to appear within the court. Cixi's constant political maneuvering, her manipulation of succession, and her consolidation of power had started to create a subtle sense of resentment among officials and traditionalists. Some saw her dominance as a disruption of the natural balance and a breach of Confucian principles. In 1879, a minor official named Wang Tonghe, often mistakenly rendered as Wakato in later accounts, took the bold step of writing a secret memorial that condemned Cixi, accusing her of overreaching and unlawfully appointing Emperor Guangxu. Understanding that being found out would lead to his demise, he prepared a message for the memorial to be released following his death by his own hand. His defiance sparked quiet murmurs of disagreement among the bureaucrats, yet no overt opposition emerged. Cixi held its ground firmly. Then, on April 8, 1881, fate delivered an unexpected blow and another opportunity. In the midst of a court audience, Empress Dowager Cixi witnessed her co-regent and longtime counterpart suddenly fall ill and collapse. Just a few hours later, she passed away due to a brain hemorrhage at the age of 43. For 20 years, Cixi and ci'an ruled together, balancing reform with tradition and guiding the Qing dynasty through rebellion and modernization. With ci'an's passing, Cixi found herself on her own. Her ambition, shrewdness, and unyielding control had ultimately led her to become the sole ruler of the empire, standing as the undisputed power behind the dragon throne. With Empress Dowager Cixi-Han's death, Cixi emerged as the sole sovereign power in China. At the age of 45, she reigned supreme, wielding power with no equal, while the 9-year-old Emperor Guangxu served merely as a figurehead, a puppet through whom her orders were communicated.
The 2 decades of shared governance between Cixi and ci'an played a crucial role in saving the Qing dynasty from collapse. They united to take power away from strict conservatives, bringing back stability and carefully guiding China towards modernization. With their guidance, the empire started to restore its institutions and reconnect with the broader world again. Yet, with Cixi now unchallenged, her rule entered a new and more intricate phase. The traits that had once guaranteed the dynasty's endurance, her decisiveness, her caution, her unwavering determination, would gradually transform into shortcomings. As reform collided with her desire for control, the delicate progress of China teetered on the edge.
The first half of Cixi's reign had guided the Qing dynasty from turmoil towards a path of recovery. The latter part would reveal if that recovery could last, or if the empress who had breathed new life into the empire would also be the one to lead it to its downfall.